What's up, everybody? It's Jeffrey Lyles welcoming you to another edition of Lyles Figure Files. Joe June's almost here. We're on May 31st, basically, and I can't wait for June to kick off. We're going to see all these new reveals from the G.I. Joe Classified Series team, including that massive, very hyped up, very anticipated HasLab vehicle. I've got my G.I. Joe periodic table t-shirt on, the first of many that I will be rocking throughout June. I can't wait for it. There's so many exciting things to see, from prototypes, the glamour production shots, the pre-orders, the pipeline announcements, just so much stuff. And G.I. Joe Classified Series is still at that point where they're going to have to work really hard to reveal a figure that I don't desperately want and need in my collection. Everything's pretty much still on the table for me, even though they've gotten like 76 figures released so far, which is mind-boggling to me. But there's still so many more left to go. So many cool variants of figures I already have. And then we can go retro with some more figures like Flint, Scarlet, Duke, Beachhead, you name it. So many more options to go. So I cannot wait. And one of the things that I was thinking about as we're seeing more of these HasLab teases is, what is this going to be? I feel like it's down to like three really big major candidates at this point. We've got the Dragonfly because of all these 24 indications on pretty much everything. That was a 24th vehicle for the line. So it's like, okay, that kind of makes sense. Then there's the Snowcat because of Quick Kick's Frozen Fudgy reference. That also seems to make sense. We've got Snow Job coming, so there's that collaboration, that synergy there with him. The Arctic Bats are coming as well, so there's another hint, clue potentially. And then the Mobat, because G.I. Joe needs something to combat the hiss, and if you're gonna just go tank for tank, then you go Mobat. And I know the Mauler's cooler, but for me, I need my classic G.I. Joe issue 1 rendition where I've got the team launching, leaping off of the Mobat and going into action. So that's my first choice in terms of the tanks, but lots of options. Of course, that led me to start thinking, we're getting these big HasLab vehicles, we're getting the hiss, we're getting whatever next year. It feels like in 2025, the Cobra vehicle will be the Thunder Machine with Thrasher. So I kind of feel like we know where we're going that in. But as a G.I. Joe fan, you and I know one of the great things about the line was the great vehicles. And if we're just getting a slow rollout of vehicles, that's not going to be enough. It'll take till 2030 before we feel like, all right, we've got a great amount of vehicles to go along with all these awesome figures we have. And I was thinking that they are starting to notice that there's smaller scale vehicles that they can put out maybe as deluxe accessories with figures. Some cases, they're just standalone vehicles like the Ram Cycle. I guess we've gotten that with 2 figures. We've gotten that with Breaker, and then we got the Tiger Force repaint with Duke, with Tiger Force Duke. But the thing that got me really excited with that last Joe live stream was the reveal of the Trouble Bubble. This is a perfect vehicle to go on retail, maybe Pulse if they have to do it, but I feel like this is a retail vehicle all the way. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's that much bigger than Fiona, but we've got something here that indicates, hey, we understand that we got army building potential with vehicles too. So they gave us 3 alternate head sculpts, the black, the white, the it doesn't even matter head sculpt because it's all covered up. And all of them will fit in the Trouble Bubble. But of course, you got 3 different head sculpts. I mean, you may as well just get 3 figures and have 3 Trouble Bubbles. And the Trouble Bubble is a great vehicle to stock up and have 5 or 10 on your shelf. When I was watching the cartoon, I was always kind of like, why are there so many Joes driving a vehicle? I mean, we have vehicle drivers for that. We have Clutch, we have Steeler, CoverGirl. So many Joe drivers. Why does everyone need to drive a Vamp, a Mobat, a Sky Striker, a Dragonfly? We have specialists for that. When I was a kid, and there's some debate if I haven't grown up yet or not, but I would pack my vehicles full of figures because that to me was a cooler way to travel, and have everybody pile into one car, one Jeep, one whatever in the fight against Cobra or the fight against the Joes, because that way everybody could fly off, jump off, and you get into action, and the vehicle driver could just go around and fight the other team's vehicle driver as well. So anyway, I wanted to look and see what are some ideal candidates, much like the Trouble Bubble, that Hasbro could possibly reveal to us over the course of the next month. Things that aren't too big, that don't need to be HasLabs, that have no business being HasLabs, that don't even necessarily need to be Pulse exclusives. I think all these 10 options that I came up with are vehicles that should work at retail. If we look at what they've already done, Ram Cycles, Fiona with Crocmaster, the Trouble Bubble now, that's going to be a little bit wider, bigger than some of these other options. So I feel like there's a new door that's opening for this classified series line and some really exciting potential vehicles to come. So let's break them down. Let's start off with my very first one. And even though we've got the Trouble Bubble, we got 2 Ram Cycles, so Cobra can get another vehicle. To me, you got to start off with the Cobra Fang. This is one of Cobra's best smaller vehicles. It's really small. It's really simple. It's not a large scale vehicle. You just need enough space for that blade, but something really tight, compact, so a Cobra trooper, officer, even Cobra commander can sit in the cockpit. No canopy for it, so it's just wide open. There are pegs here, so someone else can go along the side. You just have to be mindful of those blades rolling around. Got some missiles, Gatling gun here, so lots of real cool stuff here. And I'd also love to have that space with the rail just big enough so a Cobra can hang on and cling to the bottom, because that was something I did all the time when the Joes finally got the drop on the Cobras and they retreated. And this one and all these other vehicle shots I'm going to show you come courtesy of 3D Joes. Great, tremendous resource for all these awesome Joe vehicles, figures, bios, etc. Check them out, please. But here's an example of how wide, big the Fang needs to be. It's really small. It's pretty slender. I wouldn't think it need to take up too much more space than the Ram Cycle, maybe just a little bit more for the blade, but it shouldn't be that massive. Here's the front view. Again, a really small silhouette, something that won't take up a ton of space on your collection shelf, on your display, but you can stack it up, maybe get 2 or 3 of them. When they did the Valor versus Venom line, I had 3 Fangs. I felt that was the way to go. I had 3 Hiss tanks. And I think this is definitely something that you could mass build a bunch of these to stockpile an army. And I don't necessarily think Hasbro needs to go, we got to throw a figure in with each of these vehicles. If we want to keep costs down, I'm okay with that. But a lot of these have great options for figure inclusions. I don't think any of us are going to be upset with getting another Cobra Trooper. I mean, this is a cheap and really easy way to help everybody who wants to army build. Maybe you change up the mask component a little bit more, maybe make a red mask, or just something else to differentiate it from the other ones that have been revealed and released so far. But seriously, this is a great option to army build as well. We'll just throw in another Cobra Trooper. So that's definitely an option Hasbro can do with this. And continuing with that kind of early era Joe Cobra vehicle theme, I've got to go with the Polar Battle Bear. I mean, this is one of my favorite vehicles for G.I. Joe. It's small, yeah, but it packs a lot of punch. It's got some missiles, Gatling guns, and they've got this tab here with the vehicle itself on the box where you could rotate it and those guns would go back and forth. So much fun. And especially back in the day when we had a lot of snow in my area, this was a constant vehicle that I would pull out because I could put 3 Joes on it and it was small enough that I could just roll it out in any snow situation. For me, this is a no-brainer. We've already seen that Snow Job is coming, so this is his vehicle essentially. Put him on here. We already got a retro gung-ho. This is going to make me go, hey, we need Doc even more, or Flash because he's on the cover here. But the Polar Battle Bear is just such a great vehicle. And again, it's another small footprint on your shelf. This one carries 3 Joes, so it doesn't need to be too massive again. But here's that side shot, really compact, something that doesn't drain out all the space on your shelf. Really narrow again. I think this is the way, the avenue that Hasbro can go with these, where they just keep it small, keep it simple. We don't need anything too wide because, again, everybody has but so much shelf space, and that's going to be really important as this line continues to go on. And if we want to keep building more vehicles, where we have our HasLab showcase vehicles like a Hiss Tank, a Snowcat, a Mobat, a Mauler, Dragonfly, I don't know about a Night Raven or a Rattler or a Sky Striker, but these are vehicles we could probably incorporate in that line pretty easily. And then they can complement it with smaller scale vehicles like this one. So next up is the Cobra Asp, the Assault System Pod. And this is one that, again, doesn't need to take up a lot of space. It's basically a cockpit on a rotating foundational base here. It's got a little tow section so you can use your HISS tank to drag this along. I feel like Hasbro has done this a lot of the times in the past where they introduce one thing, oh, here's a complementary piece to it. The polar battle bear, for example, would go along really nicely, smashing up some of those Arctic Cobra bats we've just seen. So here's something that works well with the HISS tank. It's a complementary piece. I feel like some of us were kind of hoping that maybe the Cobra Asp was going to be a tier to the HISS tank back when it was revealed last year. But here's an opportunity to get this out onto retail shelves on its own. And if we need a vehicle driver, we can put another Cobra officer. Again, there's so many options, so many opportunities to army build Cobra ranks by just adding in a trooper here and there. And this is a really easy one to do with as well. So it's got these eliminator cannons that go up and down, a roll cage. It's pretty simple, pretty basic in terms of its size. So then it doesn't have to be too wide, but it works pretty well in terms of just being dragged along by the HISS tank. You can also stand it up. So there's lots of cool options on that front. But this does not need to be a big, massive vehicle. Here you can see it with the HISS tank, so you can get a sense of how big it needs to be. And with those big guns, this is something that I just feel is absolutely something Hasbro should do, especially since we've already got the HISS tank coming. This is what it looks like standing up. And I feel like this Asp is such a cool Cobra vehicle and something that they could really knock out with no problem, with no effort. And I'm going to go with another Cobra vehicle because Cobra can never have enough vehicles to battle G.I. Joe. I'm going to look at the Cobra Claw now, the covert light aerial weapon. The Claw, of course, is such a signature Cobra vehicle, really cheap, really small. It doesn't need to be really big. This is something you could just kind of plug into the back of your figures and maybe have like a fleet of 5 of them without taking up too much shelf space. And this is it. Basically, it's small. And again, it is not a massive vehicle. You could retract the wings back in the day. I don't see why there's any reason Hasbro wouldn't do that again with this modern version. And in fairness, they've already invented their Cobra Claw because with this Hasbro Fortnite Victory Royale series downshift glider, this is basically the thing. I mean, there's not too much more to change with this design. It's here basically. I mean, you just take a look at it. It's not too different from that. And they've already got it. And even then, Hasbro sold out there, but they kind of understood how much it needed to be. Under $20. If you can get a vehicle under $20. So we'll say for Fortnite, they're going to make it a little bit cheaper. So for us classified series collectors, we'll call it $30. But let's include that flight stand as well, because that's a really great addition to that. But I think there's a lot of potential for a Claw added to the line. And again, it's one of those deals where the smaller we can keep it, the better off it is for all of us, because this way we got more stuff coming and we can pad it on to all our shelves and have a whole fleet of our vehicles for G.I. Joe and for Cobra. Next up is the flying submarine, the Shark. And this is one where I feel like we definitely need to get a vehicle driver. Of course, that's Deep Six. This is something, you know, when you go out to the pool, you go out to, you know, the ocean or whatever, you keep a tight grip on it. You've got your Shark, and this just goes along in any water mission, any pool, any bathtub scenario you want to rock this bad boy in. Deep Six's original figure was pretty much a brick. He moved his arms. That was it. I feel like they can come up with a better version of him nowadays, but the Shark is absolutely a small scale vehicle. Definitely doesn't need to be too big. It's another one that I think is small enough that it could work. And of course, we want to have those torpedoes, but we want to have that bottom rack. So Torpedo, if he wants to hitch a ride, can do that as well. I mean, there's so many cool play features with the Shark. I think this is an awesome vehicle. And this is one of those that in the cartoon, they went both ways with, hey, we'll take it in the air, we'll take it underwater. It's just a really great vehicle. And I think this is an opportunity to go along with your Torpedo, maybe a Cobra Eels that are coming along soon into the line, but a really great, really strong vehicle that I think would look awesome, classified series style. So then next up, another Joe vehicle, keeping in with that same year. It's the Skyhawk. This seems like an absolute no-brainer vehicle to include in this line. Again, it's another small cockpit vehicle, and it doesn't need to take up a lot of space. It's got your skids, your foot pegs right here, even in the mock-up. Again, what works with these vehicles are they don't have to take up a lot of space. They work really well in terms of Army vehicle building because of how small they are. I've seen people mock up, they've done their 3D renders, they printed these out, and they look great. I don't see why Hasbro would miss out on this money because it's right there. It's easy for them. And the Skyhawk is a really iconic Joe vehicle. It's one of those, when you think of small Joe vehicles, you got to think the Skyhawk pretty soon in that conversation. You can have Duke in there, Snake Eyes in it. It's just, this is one of those vehicles from G.I. Joe the movie where they're going into action, ambushing Cobra, who thought they were getting a drop on everybody at the Statue of Liberty. This is one of those great vehicles and something we need to get. This is one I'm hoping that we see revealed in the next few weeks, because this is one like the Trouble Bubble. This is pretty much the counterpart to the Trouble Bubble. So we've got a Cobra vehicle in the air. Let's get a Joe one to counter it as well. So then another small one, maybe can't take out the his tank on its own, but the Armadillo is a really great vehicle. It's small. It can hold 3 Joes. It's got their driver's seat there, and then we got 2 Joes on the back. And we're almost close enough to having that shot here if we get Alpine. Hint, hint, Hasbro. So this is really small. This is not a big one. I think this is around the size possibly of your Ram cycle. Of course, it's a little wider. It needs to fit a cockpit size Joe in there. And then we have the space to put the 2 Joes hanging on that rail bar rack. I think this is another one that could work really well at retail. Small. This is not something that needs to be a Pulse exclusive. I feel like maybe $50 with no driver for this is pretty fair price wise. They don't have to make all their money, because this is a vehicle that I think would do well with people who want an Army build, because you can just stack your Joes in there. It can fit 3 comfortably, but then I want more than this. So I'm going to grab 3. And, eventually if there's some sales, people will probably stack up on these. This is one of those vehicles that I think would work really well and really easily for collectors who want a whole mass of vehicles. And this is one like the Skyhawk that I think a lot of people would grab as many as they could possibly fit on their shelves, not even worry about the price tag. So then next is another really small scale iconic vehicle. It's the Awe Striker, and this one really needs to be available at retail, because this is one of those small vehicles that is just a signature Joe vehicle. This one might be a little bit too big for retail, but I really hope that's not the case. We've got this shot. We just need the Awe Striker and Crankcase's driver. He's one that should come with the vehicle, and I think this is one that would work. Maybe it has to go on the Pulse, but it's a pretty small plastic footprint. It's got the roll bar on all sections of it. It's got that big Gatling gun, the 2 antennas, the small kind of dune buggy feel. Joes can fit on either side here, and it's got the passenger side driver's seat too. So lots of options for another rider. So maybe you could stack this up with 4 or 5 Joes, which is cool and awesome to me, because as many Joes as I can get on any vehicle, the happier I am. So the Awe Striker for sure has to be in this list, because it's just a cool vehicle. And it's one of those where if we don't get the Vamp, if we don't get the Mobat anytime soon, this is a smaller one that can work and pad a lot of Joes on here at once. And then the Cobra Fair is just one along those same lines that makes a lot of sense in terms of a smaller scale vehicle that holds a lot of figures. Well, I guess a lot in this case is not quite true. It carries 2 figures, but to me, if you can get Storm Shadow and Firefly rolling around in a big ATV vehicle, that's awesome. And it's got machine guns, it's got Gatling guns, it's got cannons, Beware of Blast, it's got missiles here. This is a smaller vehicle, but man, you can put these guys in action with it. It's great. And this one really is something that should be at retail. I mean, see exactly how big it is, which is not at all. And I just think it works. And when you can pad Cobras on here, something like this should be about a 30, maybe $40 max style vehicle. It does not need to be super expensive. Certainly not something that needs to be a Pulse exclusive. I think this can work at retail with no problem and can just get out there for everybody who wants a bunch of them. And if you can believe that, I'm already down to number 10. This is crazy and wild because, again, I could go through and come up with another 10 with no trouble, with no effort. I'm probably going to do another one breaking down Joe vehicles, figures that would work as deluxe options because there are plenty on this vehicle list that would work as well. So my final one, you guys have mentioned this several times, is one that you want to see. It's, of course, the Devilfish. And this is one that can hold 3 Joes. You got your driver and your 2 guys on the side here. Maybe we can get a wetsuit out of this. Got missiles. Always fun to see in action. And just it's a cool Joe vehicle. One of those you can pack a bunch on there and put them out on the bathtub, in the pool, whatever. You've got a wading pool. If you got a big one, whatever. And this is one that we've seen already through the Fortnite crew, through their Victory Royale series motorboat. And you take a look at this, it's like, well, this is the Devilfish basically, and this is 6-inch scale as well. And it's got seats, got your driver's seats, got space for your different riders along here, got a little water spray. So it does not seem like the Devilfish is too far off from the realm of possibility. I know a lot of people have already gotten this because, hey, it's a vehicle that could work for my Joes and my Cobras anyway. It's basically Cobra Blue. So this is a really great vehicle. Sold out here, of course, on the Pulse, but you can still pick it up on Amazon for a little under $50. I don't think that's too ridiculous for this, considering what we got with the base as well. But maybe we don't have all those special effects and accessory pieces. They could trim that down. I actually think this deluxe boat is a little bit bigger than the Devilfish needs to be, so we can slim that down, maybe keep it under $40. That would be really good. So I'm really thinking that that's a possibility to get the Devilfish in action in the line. And I think this is a Joe vehicle that should be done and would make a lot of sense to add to the line ASAP. So just to break it down in no particular order, my top 10 Joe and Cobra vehicles that are small scale enough that should be available at retail: the Awe Striker, the Cobra Asp, the Cobra Claw, the Armadillo, the Cobra Fang, the Polar Battle Bear, the Shark, the Skyhawk, Cobra Fair, and the Devilfish. Let me know what you guys think about these, my choices for small scale vehicles that will work. Let me know if you differ, which ones you'd want to see, and which of these 10 would you want to see first join the G.I. Joe Classified series line, and which one you're like me, hoping to see revealed at some point during Yo-Joe June. As always, thank you so much for watching. This episode of Loud's Figure Files has been filed.